Psychological Archetypes of Planets in Vedic Astrology, Part 1, the Sun. In Vedic astrology, each planet is more than a celestial body. It represents a powerful psychological force within us. These are not just energies in the sky. They are inner archetypes, aspects of our own psyche playing out across life's stage. And at the very center of this system stands the Sun, the archetype of the sovereign, the source, the self, and the inner authority. The Sun represents identity, purpose, vitality, willpower, clarity, and the radiance of consciousness. It governs our sense of individuality, our inner light, and the strength to walk our unique path. It answers the core question, who am I when I am not trying to be anyone else? Archetype of the Sun, the sovereign self. The Sun symbolizes the inner king or queen, the sovereign presence in your psyche that governs your choices, actions, and direction in life. It is the archetype of autonomy, leadership, and personal truth. When the Sun functions strongly within you, you radiate confidence, inspire others, and make decisions rooted in self-respect rather than insecurity. When the Sun is integrated, it expresses as clarity, conviction, dignity, and purpose. This is the part of you that knows where you are going and why. You don't need constant affirmation because your light comes from within. This archetype is deeply tied to Dharma, the inner calling you are meant to fulfill, and to integrity, which is what holds that calling in place. When the Sun archetype is weak. When the Sun is weakened or eclipsed in the chart, the inner sovereign struggles. This may show up as low self-worth, fear of being seen, dependence on external validation, or a crisis of direction. Often this results in confusion about one's role, life path, or identity. The voice of the self becomes faint, and the person may follow others' expectations rather than their own truth. A weak Sun archetype can also manifest in power struggles with authority figures or a rejection of personal leadership. There may be a tendency to either overcompensate through arrogance or shrink through self-doubt. Both are signs that the inner ruler has not been fully activated. Where the Sun becomes strong. The Sun thrives in positions that support visibility, leadership, autonomy, and conscious action. Strong placements include Sun in Aries, exalted. Here, the Sun expresses with clarity, courage, and instinctive self-leadership. This is the warrior king archetype, decisive, fearless, and purpose-driven. Sun in the 10th house. This is a classic placement for public influence, status, and responsibility. The person often feels a deep need to leave a mark on the world through their actions and integrity. Sun in the 1st house. The identity and the soul are aligned. There is a natural charisma and a strong sense of mission in life, often expressed through presence, leadership, and self-assurance. Sun in Leo. In its own sign, the Sun rules with ease. This placement brings natural authority, creative expression, and the desire to live authentically and inspire others. Well-aspected Sun, especially from Jupiter or Mars. Support from Jupiter adds wisdom and moral clarity. Support from Mars brings initiative and courage. These aspects strengthen the solar drive to lead with vision and action. Where the Sun becomes weak. The Sun struggles when it cannot assert itself freely or when it is entangled in karmic tension. Weak placements include Sun in Libra, debilitated. Here, the Sun often compromises itself for the sake of harmony. The person may struggle to prioritize their own truth, constantly seeking validation or approval from others. Sun in the 12th house. Hidden from view, the Sun here may reflect a deep internal struggle with visibility, self-worth, or identity. It can also point to a more spiritual journey, where selfhood is shaped through inner retreat rather than outer recognition. Afflicted by Saturn, Rahu, or Ketu. Saturn can restrict or suppress the Sun's expression. Rahu can inflate the ego and create identity confusion. Ketu can disconnect the person from their sense of purpose or will, integrating the Sun archetype. To strengthen the Sun, begin with self-honesty. Reflect on where you are living for others, where you are hiding your gifts, and what truth you have been avoiding. The Sun comes alive through conscious self-expression, responsibility, and alignment with one's deeper mission. This archetype asks, are you living your life or someone else's? Are you shining or shrinking? Are you governing your energy with clarity and integrity, or letting fear rule your choices? The Sun's integration is the foundation for all other archetypes. When the sovereign is strong, the rest of the psyche can organize around its light. Up next in this series, the Moon, the archetype of the caregiver, the empath, and the inner child, guiding the realms of emotion, attachment, memory, and instinctive connection. Psychological Archetypes of Planets in Vedic Astrology, Part 2, the Moon. In the archetypal landscape of Vedic astrology, the moon represents one of the most tender and foundational aspects of the human psyche. If the sun is the sovereign who leads with purpose and vision, the moon is the caretaker, the empath, the inner child, and the reflective mind. It governs our emotional reality, how we bond, and how we respond to life from a place of feeling rather than reason. The moon is the mind, not in its logical function, but as the seat of manas, instinctive perception, emotion, memory, and mood. It shows how we experience life subjectively. This archetype is about nourishment, connection, rhythm, and the ebb and flow of emotion. Where the sun says, I am, the moon asks, how do I feel? Archetype of the moon, the nurturer and the inner child. The moon governs the part of you that seeks comfort, safety, intimacy, and emotional security. It represents the archetypal mother, not necessarily the biological one, but the principle of nurturing and responsiveness. When this archetype is strong, it gives emotional intelligence, empathy, adaptability, and an ability to care for others without losing oneself. The moon is also the inner child. It holds our earliest emotional imprints, our attachment patterns, and the way we respond under stress. It governs receptivity, intuition, and that deeply personal terrain of what feels good, what feels familiar, and what feels threatening. When the moon archetype is weak, a weakened moon can express as emotional instability, anxiety, difficulty connecting with others, or being overly reactive. The inner child feels unprotected, and the nurturing archetype may become distorted, manifesting as clinginess, hypersensitivity, emotional withdrawal, or codependency. If the moon archetype is underdeveloped, the person may have trouble regulating emotions, trusting others, or soothing themselves. They may constantly seek external comfort through people, food, habits, or routine because the internal container of emotional stability has not been fully established. Where the moon becomes strong. The moon is strongest in placements that allow emotional depth, consistency, and intuitive awareness. It thrives where the person can connect authentically and express feelings in a safe, responsive way. Moon in Taurus, exalted. This is the moon's most stable expression, grounded, nurturing, emotionally steady, and deeply connected to the body and its rhythms. It creates a natural caretaker who offers comfort to others and rarely loses internal balance. Moon in the 4th house, a placement that roots the moon in its natural domain, home, family, inner life. This gives strong emotional intelligence, security from within, and deep connection to one's ancestry and emotional foundation. Moon in Cancer, its own sign. Here the moon is expressive, protective, and deeply empathetic. There's an ability to tune into others' emotional states and to respond with softness and care. Moon well aspected by Jupiter or Venus. Support from Jupiter adds wisdom, optimism, and faith to emotional experience. Venus brings affection, grace, and ease in relationships. These aspects refine and beautify the moon's emotional tone. Where the moon becomes weak, the moon struggles when it is exposed to intense or disruptive energies, or when it's disconnected from its natural rhythms. Such placements often point to emotional vulnerability, instability, or repressed needs. Moon in Scorpio, debilitated. Emotions run deep and intense, often hidden or suppressed. The person may feel emotionally unsafe or overly self-protective, leading to trust issues or emotional control. Moon in the 8th or 12th house. In these houses, the moon becomes hidden or consumed by subconscious material. Emotional processing may be secretive, spiritualized, or subject to sudden emotional shifts. Afflicted by Saturn, Rahu, or Ketu. Saturn can harden the moon, leading to emotional detachment or suppression. Rahu can cause emotional confusion, restlessness, or illusion. Ketu may bring emotional numbness or withdrawal from worldly bonds. Integrating the moon archetype. To develop and integrate the moon, one must begin with self-soothing, learning how to be present with your feelings without judgment. It involves healing early emotional wounds, reparenting the inner child, and developing emotional maturity. The moon becomes strong not by controlling feelings, but by creating emotional safety from within. Ask yourself, am I responding or reacting? Do I nurture myself the way I wish others would? Where do I run when I feel overwhelmed? and what would it mean to stay? The moon archetype matures through awareness, self-care, and emotional honesty. It teaches that feelings are not obstacles. They are indicators, messengers from within. When the moon is honored, the psyche becomes softer, wiser, and more connected to self, to others, and to the natural rhythm of life. Next in this series, Mars, the archetype of the warrior, the doer, the survivor, who governs willpower, action, anger, courage, and how we fight for what matters. Psychological Archetypes of Planets in Vedic Astrology, Part 3, Mars. After the emotional intelligence of the moon, we now enter the assertive, action-driven terrain of Mars, the archetype of the warrior, the protector, the competitor, and the survivor. Mars governs our capacity to act, assert, fight, and pursue. In the psychological landscape, this archetype represents how you take charge, stand your ground, handle anger, and navigate conflict. Mars is the fiery force that responds to threats, fuels ambition, and helps us break free from stagnation. While the sun says, "This is who I am," and the moon says, "This is how I feel," Mars says, "This is what I will do about it." It's the force of initiation, directed energy, and self-defense, the part of you that moves forward with purpose and defends your boundaries when tested. Archetype of Mars, the warrior and the instinctive actor. At its core, the Mars archetype is about agency, the ability to take control of your life through deliberate action. When healthy, Mars appears as inner confidence, physical vitality, strategic courage, and focused ambition. You know how to stand up for yourself without going to war with the world. You act with conviction, but not impulsiveness. This archetype is also about survival, how we respond to danger, challenge, and injustice. Mars isn't just about aggression, it's about facing what must be faced. Whether in a crisis or on a mission, Mars is the part of you that says, "Let's go." When the Mars archetype is weak, when Mars is weakened or out of balance, it can manifest in one of two extremes, either as suppressed will or uncontrolled reaction. A weak Mars may look like inability to assert oneself, fear of confrontation, lack of initiative or drive, passive-aggressive behavior, internalized anger, or helplessness. On the flip side, an overactive or toxic Mars may result in short temper, irritability, reactive decision-making, conflict addiction, bullying, coercion, or reckless risk-taking. Whether too weak or too strong, the key imbalance in both cases is directionless fire, energy that doesn't know where to go. Where Mars becomes strong, Mars thrives in placements that give it purpose, direction, discipline, and space to act. Strong placements create individuals who are courageous, decisive, and grounded in action. They do not fear challenge. They move toward it wisely. Mars in Capricorn, exalted. Here Mars gains focus and maturity. It becomes the disciplined warrior, strategic, goal-oriented, and capable of incredible endurance and leadership through action. Mars in the 3rd or 6th house. These are houses of competition, effort, and conflict resolution. Mars here becomes a problem solver, a fighter, a champion of skill, and someone who doesn't shy away from hard work. Mars in Aries or Scorpio. In its own signs, Mars is bold and instinctual. In Aries, it acts quickly and cleanly. In Scorpio, it acts with emotional intensity and depth, often silently but powerfully. Mars well aspected by Saturn or the Sun. Saturn adds patience and timing to Mars's drive. The Sun brings honor and purpose. These combinations create action rooted in Dharma and discipline. Where Mars becomes weak, Mars suffers when it lacks clarity, direction, or control, especially when its fire is trapped in watery, emotional, or escapist zones. Mars in Cancer, debilitated. Here, the fire of Mars is dampened by emotion. The person may struggle to express anger directly, leading to suppression, guilt, or passive aggression. Mars in the 8th or 12th house. These placements can bury Mars's fire deep in the subconscious, leading to hidden rage, fear of confrontation, or bursts of uncontrolled anger. Afflictions from the moon, Ketu, or Venus. The moon can make Mars oversensitive. Ketu can disconnect it from intention. Venus can soften it too much, reducing assertion in favor of harmony. Integrating the Mars archetype. To work with Mars constructively, one must develop a healthy relationship with anger, boundaries, and courage. Mars matures when action is based on conscious will rather than emotional reactivity. Ask yourself, do I act from clarity or reaction? Am I afraid to assert myself, or do I assert without care? What is worth fighting for in my life, and what am I avoiding? Mars becomes integrated when fire meets purpose. The warrior archetype doesn't just battle, it protects, builds, and liberates. Mars reminds us that agency is sacred. The ability to say yes, no, and go forward with intention is what gives shape to a meaningful life. Next in this series, Mercury, the archetype of the thinker, the messenger, the analyst, governing intellect, communication, logic, playfulness, and how we make sense of the world.